Welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Duran. Assemblyman Flores.
Present.
Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy. Assemblywoman Krasner.
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola. Assemblyman MacArthur, pardon me. Here. Assemblywoman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles.
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bilbray Axelrod.
Here, and please mark Assemblywoman Marzola absent excused. I believe she is testifying in another committee and should be joining us as soon as she is done. So we have all but one, so we do have a quorum. And welcome to everyone who's here in Carson City, especially our VIP, Michaeline Bilbray, my mother. Welcome to the Committee on Education. We have 3 bills that we're going to do today. Few housekeeping items, as you guys are probably all aware. For those of you who are joining online on the Zoom, if you haven't done so already, please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking to minimize the background noise. Additionally, everyone, please put your electronic devices, especially cell phones, and laptops into a silent mode. For individuals presenting in our meeting room, please keep your face coverings on at all time and maintain social distancing. We do expect courtesy and respect in this committee. We don't always agree on policy, and that's perfectly fine, but we need to be respectful to each other and the legislative process. This is in person and online, and so to keep everyone safe during this COVID-19 pandemic, members of the public may provide testimony in a various number of ways. They can always write in or call in using the Zoom. Assemblywoman Hanson, you were here for roll call, correct? Okay, sorry. They just wanted to make sure I didn't miss you. And all of our items can be found on Nellis on the committee's webpage. And finally, for those of you who are watching online in this virtual world, many of us have several screens and binders that we're working off of. So if you see us looking away, please don't take it as a sign of disrespect. We're just navigating in this new world. So today we have 3 bills to hear. We have SB 160, SB 128, and SB 215. We will hear them in that order. And you guys kind of already know this. We have allocated equal time for support, testimony and support, opposition and neutral. And 2 minutes max, please, so we can get through. We're going to have 3 bills probably for every meeting up until our next deadline. So we want to keep it moving. So with that, I will open the hearing on SB 160, revises provisions relating to dual credit course offerings. Welcome, Senator Kieckeffer, to the Education Committee. And I think this is your first time here, right? Yes, I'm sure it is. So welcome.
It is. Thank you very much.
And begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Ben Kieckeffer. I represent Senate District 16, which we are all sitting in, and I appreciate you visiting us during this legislative session. I am presenting Senate Bill 160, which is designed to accommodate a little bit of an expansion to dual credit opportunities for high school students in the state of Nevada. Ultimately, the bill updates the statute in Section 1 to include university schools for profoundly gifted students in the statute that outlines the necessary agreements for schools and districts to offer dual credit. And then in subsection 2 gets to the heart of the bill, which allows for schools and districts to create agreements with institutions of higher education that are out of state if an in-state school is unable to provide a course that student is seeking. This is a bill that was brought to be by one of my constituents who is on Zoom and prepared to testify on the need for the bill. Madam Chair, with your pleasure, I'd like to introduce Kenna Mirzayan, who is a student at Incline High and a constituent of mine and Ms. Krasner's.
Please go ahead. Welcome. You are on mute. I'm sorry.
Reach out to the chat. Chair, can you hear me in the room?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you go ahead and try again,
Oh, sure.
Ms. Mirzan?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Interesting.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
perfect.
Awesome. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly. And Kenna Mirzayan is speaking for the record. Good afternoon, everybody, and my name is Kenna Mirzayan. I'm currently a junior in high school, and I first became aware of this issue within Nevada statutes over this past summer when I decided to enroll in a Farsi class for my junior year. I had already completed my Spanish curriculum the year prior, and I wanted to better understand and connect with my culture, as my dad's side of my family was born and raised in Iran before they emigrated to the US. So they all speak Farsi. I started to look for a Farsi class. However, no Farsi classes were provided at my school. So I began to look for Farsi classes provided at universities and colleges around the country. And it was on this search that I found that no Nevada schools provided a Farsi class, whereas schools outside of the state of Nevada did. And eventually I was able to find a Farsi class that worked with my schedule. However, when I went to enroll in this course, I was informed by Washoe County School District Administration, which is the district that I attend school in, that under current Nevada statutes, a Nevada high school student cannot gain dual credit for a course that they take from a university or college outside of the state of Nevada. And it was while I was speaking with Washoe County School District Administration that they expressed frustration because they felt that they weren't able to properly support Nevada students. But I decided that I would keep looking to see if there was a possibility that I could find a Farsi class inside the state of Nevada. Eventually, after 2 months of looking, I was able to create my own independent Farsi class. However, I do currently wake up at 5:30 in the morning in order to complete my Farsi class before I go to school, because the teacher of that class lives in Turkey. And my experience is an example of something that Senate Bill 160 aims to address by allowing Nevada students to receive dual credit for courses that they take outside of the state of Nevada. Because while I was able to create my own class, it took lots of time and resources and support, which not many Nevada students have. And I don't believe that resources or lack thereof should determine if a student can or cannot receive an education. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Did you have further comments, Senator, or did you want to open it to questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The bill is fairly straightforward. I don't want to call it simple, but if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
This is the second time a senator has come into this room and said it's a simple bill. Do you not know? That's like the kiss of death.
I think I specifically said I didn't want to say simple. I said straightforward. That's
All right.
different.
Members, do we have questions of the senator? Yes. Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair. And again, Senator, I'd just like to remind you where you're at here in the Assembly, where we tend to not overcomplicate, but thoroughly vet our issues. But I guess my question is for your co-presenter. I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. What is your name again?
Kenna Mirzayan.
Hi, thank you so much. So for either one of you that could answer this, just so we get a better idea, and it's interesting that your high school said they couldn't do the dual credit enrollment, and yet we know with our colleges, we offer dual within, I believe, some of our Western Compact and Western Governors College and such. So you were seeking this credit to be a high school credit or for a college credit? But for a high school credit or for a dual through both?
I could not receive a dual credit for.
Please say your name before you testify.
Oh, sorry. Kenna Mirzayan speaking for the record. I could not receive dual credit for the course that I was looking at.
But your desire was to receive it dual for high school language credit and for college language credit? Was that your desire?
Just for high school language, Kenna Mirzayan speaking, just for high school language credit.
Okay, so not, maybe we're using the term dual a little differently, but you just wanted it to be for your high school language credit, but we just didn't physically offer it here, so you sought it somewhere else. Okay, well, that opens a secondary question then, Senator. With the passage of this bill, with our traditional definition of dual, it would cover as dual that I could achieve the credit in high school and college. Would that be correct?
Yes, Ben Kiekefer for the record, Madam Chair, through you to your Vice Chair. Absolutely. So the bill would allow for traditionally what we understand of as dual credit, so you could receive both high school credit and college credit, which is why over on the Senate side, working with NSHE, we wanted to ensure that any of those courses were through regionally accredited institutions, and we didn't carve out NSHE first, right? So that basically NSHE has right of first refusal for any courses that they offer, and then if they're not offered through an NSHE institution, then a student could look out of state for a course that they would like to take for dual credit.
Follow-up, Chair? So with that, now that we're speaking of out of state, we know that except for some of our western states that we cooperate with, now there's a difference in cost. So I know there's obviously a huge Farsi program at University of Michigan, but paying for that would be, a lot more than what we would see here, especially for out-of-state tuition. So has there been any thoughts put around that? I mean, it's permissive for our students and for NSHE, but again, when it comes to cost, that's could be prohibited. So I was just wondering if any consideration was given to how we could address that.
Sure. Ben Kiekefer for the record, Madam Chair, through you to your Vice Chair. Since this would be on sort of a case-by-case basis based on the class, there would have to be an individual agreement entered into between the school or the district and that institution of higher education. So it would have to be sort of dealt with on a case-by-case basis. We do have some dual credit assistance for students now within our high schools, obviously, as you know, but sometimes it doesn't always cover the full cost depending on the student's needs and so on and so forth. So I think it would have to be handled on a case-by-case basis in those individual agreements struck with those individual schools.
Thank you. Thank you.
Other questions from the committee? Oh, you're getting off easy. I would ask your co-presenter if she knows where I can get good Persian food because I'm really craving tadik and ghormeh sabzi. Anything up here?
Kind of resign for the record. I don't know of any good Persian food here.
I'll have to go back to
unfortunately.
Vegas. All right. Thank you. And thank you for your testimony. So with that, I will see if anyone has testimony in support of the bill. Is there anyone in the room? Okay, come on up. If I could have you leave the hot seat and welcome and begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray, Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and members of the committee. My name is Aubrey Thomas, for the record, with Foster Consulting, here on behalf of our client, the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. NAS is an organization representing all 17 school district superintendents in the state. We are in support of SB 160 and appreciate Senators Kiekefer and Sievert-Gansert for bringing the bill forward. This bill creates another opportunity for students in Nevada. As a recent graduate of UNR, I can attest to the fact that the Nevada system of higher education is excellent. However, when a course is not available in the system, this bill will enable a student to find a school that does offer the course and allow them to receive proper credit for it. This bill will be of benefit to students, and I urge the committee to support it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak in support of SB 160.
Thank you for your testimony, and you are a very fast speaker, which I appreciate, but I think you were reading off something, so if you could share that with the committee secretaries, that would really help us for the minutes, so thank you for your testimony. Anyone else in support in the room? And we don't have anyone on the Zoom, and so I will go to the phone lines. BPS, do we have anyone calling in support?
To testify in support of SB 160, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits, 023. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, and thank you, Committee Chair Bill Bray Axelrod and committee members. My name is Dr. Brenda Pearson, Brenda Pearson, and I am here representing the Clark County Education Association. CCA supports Senate Bill 160 and thanks Senators Kekeffer and Severs-Gansert for bringing this important bill forward. The goal of public education should not merely be high school graduation, but instead a path to post-secondary education. Dual credit serves for two purposes. It allows students who are proceeding to higher education the opportunity to explore courses that challenge them while accruing college credits, and it provides students who are interested in post-secondary the ability to explore options for workforce and career. Expanding dual credit education to include out-of-state institutions broadens the opportunities for students, as Nevada students should not be restrained by opportunities only available within the state. Additionally, CCA believes that maintaining cooperative agreements adds a much-needed layer of transparency by informing students and parents of the cost of enrollment up front. CCA understands that a task force has been put together to evaluate and standardize the cost of dual credit opportunities, but students across Nevada cannot wait. We must take strides towards expanding educational opportunities available to our students. As we broaden academic opportunities, we must also keep in mind the important foundational role K-12 plays in the academic experience of all Nevada students. We must encourage this committee to support the full implementation of Senate Bill 543 as recommended by the Commission on School Funding. With full implementation and funding, we can reimagine education in Nevada to provide better resources and opportunities to our students to become college and career ready. That includes the opportunity for full participation in dual credit programs that are currently limited to and do not promote the continuation of education at NSHE institutions. CCA thanks the committee and all sponsors for their effort and looks forward to supporting the full maturation of dual credit programs that will come with this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pearson, for your testimony. BPS, do we have any other callers in support?
Caller with the last three digits of 411, please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. We are so proud of our student for being an advocate for herself and pursuing this option, and grateful to Senator Kekeffer for his efforts around this issue. Of course, we wanted to approve her language credit, but without having it offered in state, we could not. Our efforts will continue to focus on dual credit at Nevada institutions, but in these cases where there is not a class offered here, we will work with the department and other out-of-state institutions to expand these dual credit opportunities elsewhere, and we are in full support of Senate Bill 160. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any other callers in support?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no additional callers to testify in support of SB 160 at this time.
Thank you. And with that, I will close support testimony and open opposition testimony on SB 160. I don't think, is there anyone in the room? Nope. And no one on the Zoom. BPS, do we have anyone on the line to offer opposition testimony?
To testify in opposition to SB 160, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers to testify in opposition on SB 160.
Thank you very much, BPS. With that, I will close opposition testimony and open testimony in the neutral position on SB 160. Is there anyone in the room who is wishing to speak in neutral? No one is coming forward, and there is no one on the Zoom, I believe. That's correct. Is there anyone on the phone line who would like to speak in neutral?
To testify in the neutral position on SB 160, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no callers to testify in the neutral position on SB 160.
Thank you very much. And Senator Keffer, did you have any closing remarks you're going to pass? Well, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank your co-presenter. I always go out of my way to thank the young people who come and testify in the committee, but the fact that you actually brought this bill forward and have found a sponsor, you should be very proud of yourself. So thank you, and I hope we'll see you again in this committee. And I wish I knew how to say some stuff in Farsi, but maybe goodbye. How do you say goodbye in Farsi?
Kana Mirzayan for the record. Khuda Hafez.
Fez. Thank you, and I will close the hearing on SB 160. Thank you. And I will open the hearing on SB 128. I see we have Senator Chair Dennis in our committee room, so welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education, and please begin when you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Chair Bilberry Axelrod and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Senator Mo Dennis, representing Senate District 2 in Clark County. I'm here today to present Senate Bill 128, which directs the state treasurer to conduct a study concerning publicly funded scholarship and grant programs in the state. I will begin with a little bit of background to provide some context for SB 128 before going over the bill's details. For years, we have known that publicly funded programs and scholarships and grant programs have competed for the same money. Indeed, during these tough economic times, we must be even more mindful of where public funds are allocated to ensure we are reaching the most students with the most need. As we all experienced during the special legislative session last summer, there is less and less money available for these critical scholarships and grants. Programs such as the Governor Gwynn Millennium Scholarship, the Nevada Promise Scholarship, the Silver State Opportunity Grant Program are all very important programs to Nevada students, and the effectiveness and success of these scholarships and grants are critical to their ongoing viability. A holistic view of publicly funded scholarships and grant programs is necessary to ensure the funds are meeting the needs of Nevada students for whom they were intended. The ultimate goal of SB 128 is to provide greater insight into the effectiveness of these various scholarships and grant programs in Nevada and provide recommendations for improvements to ensure public scholarship dollars meet their intended use. So how do we accomplish this? In short, the bill requires a study. Specifically, Senate Bill 128 requires the state treasurer to contract with one or more qualified independent consultants to conduct a study concerning the effectiveness of publicly funded scholarship and grant programs in Nevada for persons pursuing higher education. The study must include a comprehensive review of student outcomes for scholarship and grant recipients, to include graduation and dropout rates of recipients, as well as an evaluation of the way such programs were administered. Moreover, the study must include a thorough evaluation of the short-term and long-term financial viability of these programs and the projected future cost of administration. For added flexibility, this review may include any other matters that the state treasurer, in consultation with the Nevada System of Higher Education, determines is relevant to the study. Senate Bill 128 sets an April 1st, 2022 deadline for submitting a report and findings of the study to the Legislative Committee on Education. This report must include recommendations for improving the effectiveness and efficiency of publicly funded scholarships and grant programs. Recommendations must also address the improvement of student outcomes for recipients and reduction of administrative costs for each scholarship or grant program. The Legislative Committee on Education must then review the report and recommendations and consult with and solicit input from persons and entities charged with administering publicly funded scholarship and grant programs. The committee must consider the report and recommendations when requesting drafting of legislative measures. Finally, I would note that no fiscal note is included for this bill, as this measure specifies that the cost of carrying out the study must be paid from the endowment account created by the state treasurer under Nevada Revised Statute 353B.350. In conclusion, I urge your support of SB 128. This bill will provide for a much needed and overdue review of our critical scholarship and grant programs, which offer so much support for our higher education students. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for considering SB 128. And joining me today to discuss the bill further is State Treasurer Zach Conine.
Welcome, my constituent and Treasurer Conine to the Assembly Committee on Education. Did you have testimony or were you here to answer questions? Or make dad jokes?
Just a few quick words, that's all right, Chair.
Dad jokes?
A couple of dad jokes. We'll get through it, everybody together. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. For the record, I have the pleasure of being your state treasurer, Zach Conine. It's great to be here today to present Senate Bill 128 alongside Senator Dennis, and we'd just like to start by thanking him for his work through the years on these important issues. State Treasurer's Office oversees a number of critical state functions, including the administration of the Governor Gwynne Millennium Scholarship Program in coordination with the Nevada System of Higher Education. To date, the scholarship has helped 143,656 students pay for college over its 21-year existence. However, as the population of Nevada grows, an increasing number of GGMS scholarships are awarded each year. The cost of awarding a growing number of scholarships, along with the rising number of publicly funded scholarships and grants, has brought to light the necessity of an analysis of all publicly funded scholarship and grant programs, their effectiveness, and their financial longevity. We owe our Nevada families and students predictability in state-funded higher education awards, which is why we've worked with Senator Dennis to propose the legislation you have today, Senate Bill 128. Senate Bill 128 directs our office to conduct an interim study on the effectiveness of each publicly funded scholarship and their respective short and long-term financial soundness. The study won't just look at the financial aspects of the program, but also the administrative processes and whether or not the scholarships are meeting their intended uses. For example, are the students who are served by the scholarships and grants going on to graduate with a degree and getting jobs in their intended field? The study will conclude with recommendations, whether they be programmatic, administrative, or financial, for consideration by the Interim Committee on Education for legislation during the 2023 session. As noted in Section 1, Subsection 5, we have proposed the study to be funded from the College Savings Endowment Account, an account administered by the Treasurer's Office, which is funded completely through our 529 partner fees. No general fund dollars will be used. Our office looks forward to working with NSHE, the governor, the legislature, and other stakeholders to ensure new programs and these long-standing programs, such as the Governor Gwynne Millennium Scholarship, are around to help students for the next 21 years. This concludes our presentation. Happy to answer any questions about the Millennium Scholarship or bonding or really anything else we can talk about.
Thank you very much, Treasurer Conine. Committee, do we have any questions? I think everyone's like in a food coma or something. I don't know. You guys, really? All right. I guess you guys are getting off easy. So I'll have you sit back and we'll invite, is there anyone in the room who wanted to speak in support of SB 128? Did you have a question? Okay.
Good afternoon. Kent Irvin, K-N-T-E-R-V-I-N, for the Nevada Faculty Alliance. We work to empower faculty to be fully engaged in our mission to help students succeed. We support this bill. It's a good common sense thing to go ahead and study, figure out how to get some long-term stability into these programs. So very much in support. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Anyone else in the room? And do we have anyone on the Zoom? Okay, I will open it up to broadcast services. Do we have anyone on the phone line to testify in support of SB 128?
If you wish to testify in support of SB 128, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 498. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Erica Valdriz, V-A-L-D-R-I-Z with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of SB 128. The Chamber supports the initiative of the comprehensive review of our scholarship and grant recipients and its effectiveness. We believe that reviewing the scholarship and grant programs efficacy is an important benchmark for every program to succeed continually. The Chamber has been supportive of and will continue to support scholarship and grant programs in Nevada. We believe this bill will optimize financial assistance programs for students within higher education. Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee, for your time. We urge your support for this bill.
Thank you for the testimony. BPS, are there any other callers in support for SB 128?
Caller with the last 3 digits of 069. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. My name is Kanani Espinoza, K-A-N-A-N-I-E-S-P-I-N-O-Z-A, with the Road Law Group on behalf of the Nevada System of Higher Education. And she supports Senate Bill 128 and thanks Senator Dennis and Treasurer Conine for bringing the legislation forward. These established scholarships are crucial to our students and provide better access to the recipients. We are committed to maximizing state education support funding and ensuring a smooth process for our incoming students and their families. And she looks forward to being a good partner and working with the Treasurer's Office during the study. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony. Are there any other callers in support?
For those who have just joined to testify in support of SB 128, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 398, please press star 6 to unmute. You will have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and members of the Assembly Education Committee. This is Sabra Newby, S-A-B-R-A-N-E-W-B-Y, representing the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, in support of SB 128 for aforementioned reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newby. Anyone else in support?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to testify in support of SB 128.
Thank you, BPS. With that, I will close the testimony in support and open testimony in opposition. Is there anyone in the room in opposition? I'm not seeing anyone come up, and we don't have anyone on the Zoom. So I will open it up to callers on the line. BPS, are there any callers in opposition?
To testify in opposition of SB 128, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working, but we have no callers to testify in opposition on SB 128.
Thank you, BPS. I will close testimony in opposition and open testimony in neutral. Is there anyone in the room who is neutral? Not seeing anyone, and I believe we don't have anyone on the Zoom who is in neutral. Is there anyone on the phone line who is in the neutral position for SB 128?
To testify in the neutral position of SB 128, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers to testify in the neutral position on SB 128.
Thank you, BPS. I will close the testimony in the neutral position, and I would, Senator Dennis, did you have any closing remarks? Treasurer Conine? You're unusually subdued. That's it? All right. I will close the hearing on
Just thinking about purging.
SB 128. Thank you very much both for joining us. And with that, I will open up the hearing on SB 215. Welcome back, Senator Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, still Senator Mo Dennis, representing Senate District 2 in Clark County, and I'm pleased to present Senate Bill 215. Actually pretty excited about presenting this bill. In response to COVID-19 pandemic and the resulting shift in distance learning, this bill seeks to modernize certain requirements related to alternative scheduling and distance education. Presenting with me today is Joan Ebert, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Felipe Avila, student in Clark County, and Carla Phillips, Kravikis, Senior Director of Policy with Knowledge Works. I will begin with some background on 215 and then walk the committee through the sections of the bill. After I speak, Superintendent Ebert will provide additional context for the bill. We will hear from Mr. Avila on the importance of this legislation, his experience participating on the Blue Ribbon Commission for Globally Prepared Nevada. And finally, Ms. Kravikis will speak to the commission's work. As society evolves and current processes are challenged, we strive to adapt our methods and perspectives to meet new demands. That mindset has resurfaced through the many challenges we experienced over the past year with distance learning. Earlier this session, both education committees heard presentations by school districts and testimony by others on how distance learning truly became a necessity for more students than ever before. Going forward, we need to ensure that Nevada's system allows for the flexibility needed to support student success, no matter where the classroom is or their style of learning. Last fall, Nevada's Department of Education convened the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada, which brought together a diverse group of education stakeholders to examine and adjust the current policy framework to meet today's learning conditions. Senate Bill 215 carries the recommendations developed by the Commission. Senate Bill 215 has three main pillars. Those elements are: 1, distance education plans; 2, plans to improve access to technology; and 3, flexibilities in instructional time. First, beginning with Section 2, SB 215 requires school districts and charter schools and university schools for profoundly gifted pupils to develop plans for distance education and share those plans with their communities, families, and school staff. Second, to ensure all students and staff have access to the technology and connectivity necessary to participate in distance education, Section 2 also requires these school governing bodies to develop and implement a plan to make the technology available to those individuals. Third, SB 215 provides flexibilities in how students and educators accomplish their work. Specifically, Section 3 allows students who demonstrate proficiency in meeting the objectives of a distance education course to complete the course in a shorter period of time. Section 1 provides increased flexibilities for the calendar used by districts by removing certain limitations on alternative scheduling. And Section 2 allows school districts to include their own model curriculum in an application for distance education. Part of this came about, at least the interest on my part, was when we worked on some legislation for competency-based education a few years back and created a pilot. I was able to go to a school, actually to several schools, one in Utah, one in Idaho, but I remember specifically that the one in Utah had high school kids going to there was, I think it was a small 200 kids in a school that had been built onto a community college. The kids would come in, they had to be in school between anytime between 7 a.m. and like 6 p.m. They had a block of time, and they could come in and work on their on what they needed to on computers, and then there was a teacher that would monitor what was going on, but they kind of worked at their own pace. And if the teacher recognized that there was an issue that needed to be resolved, specific math concept, then she would pull together those students into a class to kind of go over those issues, and then the kids would continue to progress. And so they were able to move at their own pace. And so that showed me that you know, some kids learn differently, and some have the ability, you know, in some cases they could do all the math that they needed for all their high school in just a few months, but they might take longer to do some of the other classes. So so when this commission was put together, I was really interested to see and have that discussion about how do we look at that, and rather than specifically having a set amount of time that you have to sit in a chair, it's based on making sure that they can understand and learn what's going on. And so as we looked at this bill, it addresses some of these issues. Additionally, there was a fiscal impact that was on there, and when with the and Clark County can put that on the record that they are withdrawing their fiscal note based on the better understanding of how the bill works, and it's not a mandate, but it gives that flexibility. So I would like to now introduce State Superintendent Joan Ebert to speak on the work of the commission.
Thank you, Senator Dennis, and welcome Superintendent Ebert again to Assembly Education Committee. Begin when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilbray Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, members of the Assembly Education Committee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert. I'm honored to serve as your State Superintendent of Public Instruction. COVID-19 has, without a doubt, been a turning point for our education system. And in the Nevada Department of Education, we are committed to seizing this opportunity for our children and make sure that they have a better future. A future where student mastery is more important than seat time. a future where students learn in culturally responsive environments and where they see themselves in learning materials and where their differences are valued and celebrated, and a future where every student graduates with the tools they need to build that home, life, and future. What we like to say is our students will be globally prepared. And as Senator Dennis mentioned, Senate Bill 215 is based on the work of the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada. I convened the Blue Ribbon Commission last fall, and I'm proud of the great work they have done in such a short period of time. We pulled together a diverse group of stakeholders with two key purposes. At the start, we wanted to recommend updates and flexibilities in statute that reflected the ways districts and schools operated during the COVID-19 pandemic. And as the work progressed, we moved toward a more visionary goal, future-proofing Nevada's education system. The Commission's charge was to make recommendations to adjust our current policy framework to meet today's learning conditions. I want to thank legislators, including Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno and Tolles. Both served on the Blue Ribbon Commission. We had school district superintendents and staff, public charter schools, private school principals, classroom teachers, higher education, business partners, advocates, parents, and students who served on the commission. The legislation heard today is a testament to their commitment to creating a more equitable education system for all of our students. As we plan for recovery and renewal the next school year, we need to be thinking differently about how we group students into classes and cohorts. Competency-based education enables us to meet students where they are and support them through success. Moving away from seat time to student mastery has never been more important than this moment in time. I want to thank Senator Dennis for his continued support of competency-based education and his leadership in incorporating the many commission recommendations into SB 215. I also want to recognize the Nevada Department of Education directors, Dave Brandkamp, Craig Statuki for leading this work, as well as our Chief Strategy Officer, Jessica Todman, and our Deputy Superintendents, Dr. Jonathan Moore and Felicia Gonzalez. They supported this work to its fruition. The department's amendment to Senate Bill 215, as adopted April 16th, carries additional recommendations from the Blue Ribbon Commission. This amendment revised the definition of distance education in Section 1 to include synchronous and asynchronous learning. Added Section 2, subsection 3, paragraph C, that the plan to provide technology includes communication with families, students, and staff. Increase the number of days before the start of the school year. Districts share its distance education plan from 20 days to 45 days before the start of the school year in Section 2, subsection 6. It also revised Section 3 with language originally proposed by the Commission, which allows students who demonstrate sufficient proficiency to meet the objectives of a distance education course to complete a distance education course in a shorter period of time. And it adds a new section to Section 3 defining eligibility for distance education. Thank you, Chair. And now I would like to introduce Ms. Carla Phillips Kravikis.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Superintendent Ebert and Senator Dennis, for having me today. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller and members of the committee. It has been an honor and a privilege to support the work of the Blue Ribbon Commission. The membership represented a deep and diverse set of stakeholders that provided rich conversation and ultimately strong recommendations. My organization, KnowledgeWorks, partners with states all across the country and learning communities that are seeking to move towards more student-centered, personalized, competency-based learning. And Nevada is quickly becoming a leader. The instructional time that has been lost left schools wondering how to report attendance, award credit, graduate students in lieu of traditional time-based requirements. These issues are very complex as time-based policies are deeply entangled throughout the code and differ from state to state. Ironically, though, the same issues that stymied school efforts to meet the needs of schools during that pandemic have really been the same ones that have hindered efforts pre-pandemic to transition to more student-centered models. As their recommendations noted, the Commission similarly recognized, and I quote, that the existing policy framework does not provide the net flexibility needed to support schools during the current crisis or the space to innovate and develop more resilient. The members came together quickly and identified a series of immediate steps legislators could take, primarily by extending some of the temporary flexibilities that were afforded this past year. Many of these are reflected in Senate Bill 250. Now the commission is well positioned to take on the next phase of the work, which is to develop more long-term systemic policy solutions. Their recommendation stated that, and again I quote, "The pandemic has elevated issues long overdue for discussion, and the commission is eager to dive in." It's with this eagerness that I believe Nevada will be well positioned in supporting school transformation and national needs. And now I'm pleased to introduce Felipe Avila, a student in the Clark County School District who is an active participant.
Thank you, Carla, and thank you, Senator Dennis and Superintendent Ebert, for inviting me to be a part of this exciting announcement. My name is Felipe Avila, Felipe-Avila, and I am a junior at East Career and Technical Academy in the Clark County School District. I am enrolled in the Certified Nursing Assistant program at East Tech, where I have found an interest in public policy and public health. I have been fortunate at my school to have the opportunity to select a pathway tailored to my interests and to participate in career-connected learning. Not everyone in Nevada has the same opportunities I've had. This bill seeks to bridge the inequality gap and will help expand the opportunity for flexible learning to other students across Nevada. I was honored to be invited by Superintendent Ebert to serve on the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada. It was truly amazing to see so many local and state leaders banding together, committed to helping students like me. It was immediately clear to me that the leaders in education truly wanted to hear from other student participants and me about our experiences navigating our education in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition to being a voice for students, allowed me to represent thousands of other students across the state. While the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for everyone in our state, I am grateful that our state leaders are focused on what we can learn from this experience in order to better help students recover and continue to grow in their education. And I am truly proud that Senate Bill 215 will help more students across Nevada to have a personalized learning experience that helps support them to meet their goals. And thank you, and I will now hand it back to Senator Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for considering the bill. I would probably say that the concepts in this bill actually might be some of the most important educational concepts that you'll hear in this session, because they really are transformational and allow students to be able to learn at the pace that they need to learn, and helps us to get rid of those barriers that have been there. And it provides those flexibilities to support the schools and students. So I urge support, and we are all happy to answer any of the questions that you might have.
Thank you, Senator, and thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Felipe, for joining us as well. Members of the committee, do we have any questions? We have a question from Assemblywoman Tolles, who I believe was on the Blue Ribbon Commission.
She was.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Dennis, and all of the presenters, familiar faces. I appreciate all the work that went into these recommendations, and I'm very excited that we are pursuing this. I'm excited that we're having these conversations. It's unfortunate that we had, in many ways, had this pandemic really spur us into action, but that is one of the silver linings of this past year, and the lessons learned is how incredibly important having this plan in place, keeping in mind that equity in digital access. I particularly appreciate that piece. As we saw, that was a major issue over the past year. So thank you for this legislation. And I just have a couple quick questions that I'd like to dive into a little bit. So obviously one of the most game-changing pieces of this legislation is under Section 2, subsection C. And that is that competency-based, where it's demonstrating proficiency, it's demonstrating competency, and really letting that pupil accelerate at their pace and supporting them in that. And I may be dating myself, but I call this the Doogie Howser clause, that, you have maybe this profoundly gifted student that accelerates so quickly that they end up graduating from med school at age 17. So I was just wondering, for those who don't know that reference, I was just wondering, how would that work for that student who accelerates very rapidly through based on proficiency and competency? Is the goal here to get them to graduate sooner, or to open up more space for things like the last bill we just heard about, dual credits, and other opportunities for educational advancement?
Well, thank you, Senator Dennis. For the record, I'll start, and maybe the superintendent can continue. What I would envision, and I think from the discussions that we had, is some students might progress really fast. You use the Doogie Howser reference, where he was able to get all the way through. But some kids might be really good in math, but have a really hard time in science. So they could hurry through and get done the stuff that they know really well, and then they could take more time to get through those other subjects. So I would envision that this will give them that opportunity and kind of tailor it. So they may not necessarily graduate faster because they need more time in certain areas. But I don't know, is there other, yeah.
Thank you. For the record, State Superintendent Joan Ebert. What I would say, yes, and the example that I like to also use is Algebra 1. It's one of the most failed classes across the state, the first semester. And it's not necessarily that it's because the child isn't able to learn the content, but we're locked into 18 weeks, and then that's it. And if they don't pass that first 18 weeks, then how do you go on to the second 18? Then normally they have to do summer school and then pay for summer school, and it just starts this vicious circle. And sometimes the students just need an additional 4 weeks. It's not 18 weeks to get to through that Algebra 1 content. It's 22 weeks that they need. And so giving that time, it actually is a cost savings measure when you think about it, because the student is not retaking a whole semester, right? They're only expanding by 4 weeks, and then they can continue on their learning. So it's a yes and to all those great aspects that you brought forward, Assemblywoman Tolles. Thank you.
Thank you for that explanation. I think that's important to get on the record. And if I could ask a shorter second question to follow up. One of our, Carla, good to see you. One of the presenters mentioned that this would help us compete nationally. And I just wonder, and I know that we had Kansas come in and present, so for the sake of the benefit of this committee, we've seen these models work really well. Where will this help accelerate us nationally in terms of our educational outcomes?
Have Carla do that, or you want to do that?
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert. For the record, thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Tolles. So I had the pleasure of working with all 50 states and the territories as well, and we like to compare notes. There is no state that has taken it on to the speed with which we're doing. I will tell you that some states are a little farther along than we have been, but we are all working together to make sure that we benefit students. So if this legislation passes, we will definitely be in the forefront as far as states that have legislation on the books that would allow school districts to move in this direction. I would add here in the state, Churchill County School District was part of the original competency-based components, and they are whole school district. And it takes time. It takes time to work with the staff, support the families. It's a shift for families as well, and moving forward. So definitely this puts us on the forefront, at the top of the list for this area. I think Carla may have some others. She does work nationally as well.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Superintendent Ebert. I want to kind of dovetail on a little bit that everything said. I would emphasize Assemblywoman Tolles' comments about the opportunity to go deeper. I mean, if anything, I think we all have learned nationally this year. We talk a lot about learning loss. So there's really little desire to provide less time. If anything, it's about maximizing time and giving schools the flexibility to use time differently. I think that's one of the overarching goals of the commission, and one that we'll continue to work on. And I think that's really the states that we would consider leaders. It's not that they have developed perfect programs and schools are adopting them. It's that they've given that flexibility, but still provided guardrails and accountability for schools to really meet the needs of kids. So as Superintendent Ebert discussed, we've been talking about this in Senator Dennis, even in Nevada, for many, many years. But what this past year did was really spotlighted the fact that most schools in most states didn't have flexibility. They needed to be nimble, respond quickly to really tremendous.
Thank you. And we do have several questions from the committee, so we're going to go in this order. Assemblywoman Hanson, Vice Chair Miller, Assemblywoman Torres, and Assemblywoman Krasner. So, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Senator Dennis and Ms. Ebert for being here today, or Superintendent Ebert. I lost my title for a moment. Appreciate the presentation and the intent, and I actually want to give a little shout out, kudos to kind of the pioneer distance education. I think that might have been Assemblywoman Tolles when we were struggling to how to make up snow days, I think back in 2019, and there was this crazy idea about distance learning. So, and then here we are after a pandemic. So appreciate her forethinking. I had a question on the amendment. I'm looking at that version. So in section 3.5, sub 2, it's striking the language from the original, which is a child who is exempt from compulsory attendance and is enrolled in a private school pursuant to so on and so forth, or is being homeschooled, is not eligible to enroll in or otherwise attend a program of distance education regardless of whether the child is otherwise eligible for enrollment. I'm sorry, you're striking that. So I was just curious why. Why are you striking that?
But give me that reference again. It was section
It was
3?
section 3.5, 2. It's on line 32
Okay.
of page 7 on the amendment.
Okay, hold on.
I think we could probably have legal answer that. I think that'd just be easier.
Well, and I was curious if it was the sponsor who wanted to take it out, or?
Commission, yeah, the commission in our, yeah, that was the commission in our discussions. We talked about that concept. Yeah, so it's just giving flexibility in being able to do that educational plan.
So originally, we would say no to those, that you don't get to opt in, but then now we're saying we want you to be able to opt in.
Right.
So you thought that just provides more flexibility. You didn't like the exemption.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I would go back to our legal counsel if you could just speak briefly of that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Amanda Mritzik, Committee Counsel. So I can't really speak as to why this was put in, but I think Senator Dennis covered that. But just from a legal perspective, currently the existing law prevents or prohibits private school pupils and homeschool pupils from enrolling in a program of distance education. And as amended, those pupils could enroll in a program of distance education.
Is that all? Okay. It's permissive language allowing them to do so, but not mandating.
Right.
Okay. Next, we will go to Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going to start right off because this wasn't my original question, but it brought up another question. So in just dealing with homeschooled students, so if a student that is homeschooled takes advantage of distance learning, but by definition they're homeschooled, who would pay for the distance learning? Because at that point, if a student's identified as homeschool, then our public schools are not getting the funds for that. So we're now saying that, and again, homeschooled students already have a lot of flexibility and variety in their educational approach, and also have the ability to take advantage of offerings from the public schools. But because I see a situation where a homeschool student could literally just do all of the programming and curriculum through distance learning, just for, do you see where I'm going with this question? Maybe Superintendent would like to respond. So I guess I'm wondering why just why?
So I'll start and then have the superintendent go. I think part of that is that they currently are allowed to do some things, right? And so let's say they needed a specific class that they can't offer, they would be able to do that. And so however, I don't think this changes the way how they currently fund that. But this would just be give that other additional option. So you wanna...
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert. For the record, Assemblywoman Miller. So as Senator Dennis just noted, we would follow those same components of participatory. This piece actually explicitly would not allow them to participate in any distance learning. And so now that it is opened up, to your point, if they were taking all their classes, then we would enroll them so they wouldn't be homeschooled anymore, right? I mean, if they truly were. It's those courses, almost similar to what was stated earlier with the dual credit, right? That the student needs one class in those instances, and school districts traditionally, and I cannot speak for the superintendents right now, but I do know in practice, if it's one course, a specified course, and if there is room available in that course, then they allow the student to enroll.
And that makes sense. Thank you for that clarification. So now, Chair, I'm going to go to my original question. I just found that to be an interesting discussion. It's first, I guess I'll start with a comment. And with this type of programming, and I was involved in this back in the 90s when we were doing this for teen pregnancy programs and alternative ed programs and stuff like that, and very pre-computery, very pre-virtual. So I know that it can be successful and definitely necessary for certain students, but I also already named alternative ed and teen pregnancy. So these weren't the students that are, we've been focusing on highly gifted and extremely gifted, but I don't want us to lose sight of so many of our students here that for equity issues, I mean, we have students, and I believe most people in this room know, that literally are working to help support their families. And so to ensure that this would be available to all of our students, especially in those situations where we have students, raising their own children or helping provide for their own family unit, that they're able to take advantage of that as well. So I don't want us to, if you'd like to expand on that, but.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair, Senator Dennis, for the record. As I mentioned earlier, I visited a school in Salt Lake. That school was not high-achieving kids. Those were all, many of them low-achieving and probably more middle of the road. And as I mentioned, I think this gives even more flexibility for those kids because, especially ones that have to try to provide for their families and other things like that, they would be able to move at a different pace and not be stuck with just the, as was mentioned earlier, you mess up on algebra, you got to retake the whole class. You don't get an option to just make up the difference. And so this would really be something that would be, especially for those students that aren't the Doogie Housers of education. These are just regular kids, but perhaps they might do really well in one thing and need extra help in a different.
Thank you. And now to my actual question, Chair. So my actual question is, I see some, and it could just be language in the way it was drafted, but even looking at the amendment, there seems to be some differences under Section 6 on how the public schools and the charter schools are addressed. Like little things like day limits and requirements for, communicating with family and stuff like that, and one has to have public events and one doesn't, and so is that just a drafting language difference, or is there actually administrative and operational reasons for those differences?
Thank you. So in working with the Charter School Authority and having so we know that we have charter schools that exist in different ways. We have charter schools that are actually authorized by school districts, and those charter schools would fit under the school district plans to make sure, follow that. And then with the Charter School Authority, the plans would go to the authority. In the original draft, we missed that piece. They all should be aligned as far as ensuring public comment, timing for posting of the plans. All of those should be aligned. So we can go back through and make sure that they are aligned. But the intent is to have them aligned, but reporting either to the school districts and or the charter authority, depending on the charter, where the charter schools are authorized.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. We will go to Assemblywoman Torres. This one, not that one. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Senator. It's always great to see you in the Education Committee. I had two separate questions. So my first question is regarding Section 2, subsection 6 and 7. When I'm looking at it, I noticed that we're requiring that the plan is created at least 45 days before the first day of each school year. But then as we go on, the plan for the digital, addressing like the technology, isn't required to be submitted until December 31st. And obviously that's halfway through the school year. At that point, I think most schools have finished one semester. So I'm just wondering why there's a discrepancy and like why we wouldn't want the plan for that digital to be available earlier.
Yeah, so I just double checked that. That's for the following year. So they have to have it December 31st for the next school year. So that way that technology is in place for the start of school the following year.
Got it. Okay, perfect. That makes sense. Thank you. And just another question regarding Section 3 on page 6, subsection 3, which is in regards to the students that demonstrate sufficient proficiency. And I'm just wondering if there's any concerns, though, that this is going to, as an educator who's seen many of my students taking online classes, maybe through Apex or other learning programs, unfortunately, I've also seen those programs and those systems being abused, right, where students can find those answers. There's actually an app that they get, and they can literally scan it, and they don't even have to type in the question, and then they get the answer. And I've seen those being used so many times, and my students can just kind of advance through classes where they don't know the material, and that's, as an educator, has been concerning to me, because then they're sitting in classes that they don't know the material to, and when they do graduate, they're not going to have the skills that they need. And so that's my concern on there. So I'm just wondering what's going to be done to kind of address that, because I do have concerns that students might quickly advance through classes, but really it's not them advancing. It's just that they're able to use the different tools that they have available to them.
Well, and I'll start. Part of this is, even though we call it distance ed, it could be in a classroom with a teacher there with them. I mean, that's how I've seen some of these programs work, right? The one that I went to, the kids had to be actually in the actual school to do that. And I would imagine, coming from a technology background, the things that we've learned, especially this past year, as far as how to deal with those types of issues, I mean, those are being, if they're not already developed, they're already being developed to make sure that, at the end of the day, we want the child to be able to learn and know that they know it, and that they didn't, just do it. So that would be the intent. Now, specifically, I think you could probably address those, right?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres, for the question. That is something that I think people struggle with nationally, and it's what it is. You gave a perfect example, right? It's the tool is used appropriately. That it's not just kill and drill, what people used to have worksheets, right? People just filling in worksheets and then they're done. So making sure that students' learning is measured in authentic ways. So you can also add, Apex is a great tool when used appropriately, and not just put the kid on and say, here, now you've done these questions, we're going to give you a credit. But to make sure that the tool is set appropriately, the content is assessed, and then also having our students do project-based learning, those types of components to ensure that there is authentic learning, that the student has learned the material but also can demonstrate learning of the material. So if you see those instances, especially across our schools, we've worked with our school districts for many years to make sure those types of things do not happen, but we will continue to work with school districts. to ensure that doesn't happen.
Thank you, and I understand that that's not an issue that's unique to Nevada. I think just as education has changed and as technology becomes more and more available, that's not something that's unique to our state. And I'm just wondering, like, if there's anything in this legislation though that's going to require that there is like some type of teacher involvement though with that distance education, because what I would hate to see is that a teacher gets a huge class of like 300 students that they're supposed to be monitoring on one of these similar to Apex. That's the program I'm familiar with, but these online programs. But then there's no teacher involvement with that student. And I don't think that's the intent of the bill, but I'm just wondering if there's anything in this legislation to protect that and prevent that.
So all of the plans, when school districts start to work, just as the commission itself was, it had parents, students, everyone. In every aspect of education, that is the model that we should be using. The teacher aspect and voice, and I spoke to Churchill earlier, they have had great voice on what needs to transpire and happen with their own professional learning, with the community as a whole, and the students to make sure that student progress has happened. This is a massive shift. It's going to take all of us to have communication, and teachers are the ones that are doing the work with our children. Absolutely need to be consulted, and that's why the plan itself also needs to be posted for at least 45 days prior, so that if things are missed, people have time to react to what is posted to the public.
And I think maybe to clarify a little bit, I'm just wondering and I apologize, Chair, for all the follow-up questions. If it's going to require that there's a teacher engagement with the student, some type of relationship between a teacher and a student, and not just putting the student in this online program away from a teacher. So I don't know that I see that within the legislation right now. But I definitely think that that's what the goal is, right? That there is that teacher-student relationship still. And I'm just wondering if that could possibly be included.
Senator Dennis, for the record, yeah. I mean, obviously that's the intent. I mean, the intent is not to just put a student on a computer. I think the one example that I gave you about the school that I toured was the fact that the teacher was able to constantly be monitoring what those students were doing and seeing where they were not doing as well. And that's the model that we would want to see. Now, if that's not specific in here, we could put, make sure that there's some kind of guidance in here for that. I guess we'd have to talk to legal on how we would do that. But definitely that the intent would be that, the teacher, instead of being in front of a classroom of 40 kids, would be able to really see what they're doing and keep track of what they're doing. And so that would be the intent.
Assemblywoman Torres, you're good now? All right. And I think we're going to end questioning with Assemblywoman Krasner so we can get on to testimony.
Thank you, Chair Bilbray Axelrod. And thank you, Senator Dennis, for your presentation. So I just have a question in regard to Section 3, Sub 3. Is it conceivable, is it possible that a bright and driven student could complete all of their high school classes in 1 year and graduate in 1 year?
I don't know that we've seen that, but I guess if it could be conceivable, I guess, that if they are able to move at that rate, I don't know that we've seen that, and they would have to be, obviously, when we talked about earlier, you'd have to talk about a student that's prepared in every aspect, because if they're really well in math, but they may not be able to finish. So there is that possibility, I would suppose.
But yes, it just says Section 3, Sub 3, a pupil enrolled in a program of distance education on a full-time basis who demonstrates sufficient proficiency to meet the objectives of a course of distance education may complete the course of distance education in a shorter period of time than is normally allotted for the course of distance education. And that's why I just was wondering, yes, in fact, it is possible that a driven, bright student could complete all 4 years of high school in 1 year and graduate in 1 year. And your answer is yes, correct?
Right.
Thank you.
And I would point out that the purpose of this is we want children to be able to move at the pace that they need to move. We've seen some kids drop out of school because they're bored and they're not. So by providing these opportunities for them to move at the pace that they need to, they'll be able to learn more. And so if a student is really, as you mentioned, that driven and has the knowledge, then why would we want to slow them down when that's something that would benefit them?
And just for the record, Doogie Hauser graduated high school in 9 weeks. I was a big fan. All right, with that, we will move on to testimony. Do we have anyone in the room who would like to testify in support? You coming to the table, welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair Bilbray Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, and I'm here representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents. And we're excited about this piece of legislation as well, the flexibility that it is going to allow students. It's really the wave of the future, and it's taken a long time to get this far and to have this piece of legislation before you today. We also want to thank the Blue Ribbon Commission, and the superintendents were well represented on the Blue Ribbon Commission. We had Dr. Jara from Clark, Pam Teal from Lincoln, and Dr. Stevens from Churchill. So they all had input on this. We appreciate this piece of legislation being brought forward, and we are in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the testimony. Is there anyone else in the room that wanted to testify? Okay, and I know we don't have anyone on the Zoom, so we will go to our first caller. BPS, do we have callers in support?
To testify in support of SB 215, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 411, please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Chair Bilbray Axelrod. For the record, this is Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAYANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. We are in support of Senate Bill 215, and we've been committed to this work for some time. We've participated in the Blue Ribbon Commission and in the pilot program of competency-based education and have learned many insights on how to move this work forward. We know there are many questions to answer to ensure this is thoughtfully rolled out in an equitable fashion with access to all of our students. This is very important work, and we're looking forward to supporting the implementation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last 3 digits, 023, please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Bilbray Axelrod and committee members. My name is Dr. Brenda Pearson, BRENDAPEARSON, and I'm here representing the Clark County Education Association. CCEA is testifying in support on Senate Bill 215. When that light switch moment happened on March 15th, 2020, and classrooms across Nevada were closed and thrown into distance learning, gaping inequities were highlighted. Since then, Nevada has worked tirelessly to put devices in every student's hands and ensure internet access to all students. But our state has done very little to rethink educational opportunities. Senate Bill 215 rethinks distance learning by removing the arbitrary timelines in which students learn to allow students across Nevada who learn content at different rates to demonstrate mastery and explore educational opportunities at their own pace. CCA believes that distance learning, as outlined in Senate Bill 215, would be accessible to all Nevada students. We caution legislators that Nevada must prioritize the quality of opportunities over the quantity of opportunities offered to our students. Quality is determined by whether educators can meet standards where they are, students where they are, and lead them forward academically. This can only be done when educators have strong content knowledge, appropriate resources, and access to flexible and engaging curriculum. Simply put, this takes new revenue designated for education. CCA believes that the full implementation of Senate Bill 543 will ensure educators have the needed tools and students have the high-quality learning experiences needed to lead them to college and career readiness. CCA understands that it takes both the Democrats and the Republicans under the governor's leadership to be able to introduce and pass new revenue needed to fund Senate Bill 543. By failing to do so, this is telling on Nevada's families and students that we are not vested in their future. We do not have time to wait for another legislative session to find and pass new revenue. CCA supports Senate Bill 215, and we look forward to working with our bargaining partner to create and implement competency-based distance learning that will provide more opportunities to our students and the opportunity for creativity to our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other callers in support?
Caller with the last three digits of 874. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilberry, Axelrod, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Rebecca Garcia, REBECCA, GARCIA, President of the Nevada Parent-Teacher Association. I also have had the privilege to serve as a parent representative on the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada. The pandemic shone a light on many challenges in education. Nevada PTA supports this legislation to help our state move forward. Nevada PTA would like to acknowledge Superintendent Ebert and the team at NDE for proactively convening broad stakeholders to not just help our education system recover, but also look for innovative ways to improve education that meets our students' needs. Thank you also to Senator Dennis for bringing forward this legislation based upon the Blue Ribbon Commission recommendations. It is essential that instruction delivery models meet the needs of today's students and have the flexibility to adapt to the changing needs of students and systems in the years to come. Students need individual pathways to learning that allow them to graduate from Nevada schools ready for a productive career and life. SB 215 provides more opportunities to focus on mastery versus just minutes and relevant modernization updates for distance learning. Ensuring competency-based education and technology options are available is important to meeting the diverse needs of students across our state. We urge your support for this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller in support.
Caller with the last three digits of 080. Please press *6 to unmute. There you go. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Bilberry Axelrod and members of the Education Committee. My name is Leonardo Benavides, LEONARDO with the Clark County School District, testifying today in support of SB 215. We want to thank Senator Dennis for sponsoring this bill and the Blue Ribbon Commission for their work in bringing forward the recommendations that are the framework for this bill. As this past year has shown, the world of education has forever changed as we shifted to a full distance model. Even as we start to return to some form of in-person learning, distance education has forever become a part of the equation for how we'll reach a subset of students. This is why CCSD Superintendent Jesus Jara was a member of the Blue Ribbon Commission, as pointed out by Ms. Brzezinski, to help ensure innovation at the forefront for how we educate our students. SB 215 also gives school districts the flexibility needed so instruction isn't restricted to a set time on the calendar in order to meet the needs of all students as we develop these new long-term distance education models that satisfy the learning needs of our diverse student population. Finally, we wanted to note that we officially request to remove the fiscal note as the bill entails works that the district is already undertaking. Once again, I want to thank Senator Dennis for sponsoring this important bill and letting us speak to you today about the importance of support for distance education. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. I believe there's one more caller in support, BPS.
Caller with the last three digits of 498. Please press *6 to unmute. Please state and spell your name for the record. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Erica Valdez, ERICAVALDRIZ with the Vegas Chamber. The Chamber is in support of SB 215. The Vegas Chamber believes this bill ensures Nevada students to continue their momentum and achievement through their completion of a course of distance learning. Especially in this day and age and on, having a plan of action to better improve distance learning is critical for our students. We believe providing the necessary technology together with a plan for the community, families, and school staff will make certain of our Nevada student success. We believe this bill creates and encourages additional transparency between the parent or legal guardian, pupil, the teacher, and the school district, especially in Section 4. Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee, for your time. We urge your support for this bill.
Thank you. Are there any other callers in support, BPS?
Caller with the last three digits of 852. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Education Committee. For the record, my name is Katie Dauphiné, KATIE-DAUPHINAIS, here to testify on behalf of Excel and Ed in Action in support of Senate Bill 215. First, I'd like to thank the sponsor, Senator Dennis, for sponsoring this legislation and for those who have supported this bill leading up to today's committee hearing. I also want to applaud the work of Superintendent Ebert for convening the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada, whose vision really helped shape the bill that you're considering today. From a national perspective, we are very excited to see states that have used the challenges of the pandemic to create long-term innovative solutions that support student-centered learning and ultimately sets the student up for success for college or career when they leave the K-12 system. We're especially excited that this bill is born out of ideas crafted by Nevada stakeholders who know what is best for Nevada students. The collective work of the Blue Ribbon Commission for a Globally Prepared Nevada has created an equitable solution to ensuring students receive quality distance learning experiences, gives school leaders the flexibilities to have creative approaches to address learning losses that the pandemic has created, and ultimately opens up the door for more innovative solutions for education in Nevada. We believe that a student is best served by an education system that fits their unique needs, and Senate Bill 215 is a great first step in doing this. We appreciate you considering today's bill, and we kindly ask for support for Senate Bill 215.
Thank you very much. BPS, any other callers in support?
Chair, the line is open and working, but we currently have no callers to testify in support of SB 215.
Thank you, BPS. With that, I will close the testimony in support and open testimony in opposition. I don't believe we have anyone in the room, and I don't believe we have anyone on the Zoom. So I will go to you, BPS. Do we have any callers in opposition?
Caller with the last three digits of 170. Please state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, this is Elisa Wall with Nevada Homeschool Network, ELISSAWAHL. So I'm glad that some of the members have brought up the issue with Section 3.5. That section strikes out the exclusion for private school children and homeschool children to enroll in a program of distance ed. The outcome of this is now those students will be able to enroll in programs of distance education. So then, are they a private school student, a homeschool student, or a student of the public school offering the program? How does a homeschool or private school student enroll in a public school distance ed program classified differently than a public school student enrolled in a distance education program? Who is responsible for the education? Who would issue the diploma? This not only muddies the water as far as what is defined as homeschooling and what isn't, but also who is responsible for the education. It also then turns public funding into funding homeschoolers and private schoolers. This issue has already gone to court regarding the ESA program and has been decided that public funding cannot be used for other educational options. Surely, this is not the intent of the amendment. Homeschoolers want to remain free from public school policies and funding. Allowing homeschoolers to enroll would confuse that issue. Homeschoolers are already allowed to participate in classes. Participation is different than enrollment. This section is about enrollment. I believe I even heard your legal counsel say this section was about enrollment. In our opinion, this amendment needs an amendment to re-put in what that amendment struck out. We were blessed to speak with Senator Dennis on Tuesday evening, and we thought he understood the issue and would be offering an amendment. If the chair so pleases, Nevada Homeschool Network would be glad to offer a friendly amendment, but we are extremely, extremely upset at the idea of this bill moving forward with that still in place. We did not plan to publicize this issue to our members. We thought this was a simple oversight that could be quickly remedied. That does not sound like it's going to be the case. We're also disturbed by this trend of this current superintendent of public instruction seeming to work to legislate homeschoolers and not include us in these conversations. So we ask you to please allow an amendment re-striking out that section and exempting homeschoolers and private schoolers from this bill. Again, as we mentioned, it was not funded. It was struck down in a court. So our ask is for us to be able to participate as already allowed, but not be enrolled. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other callers in opposition?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no further callers in opposition to SB 215 at this time.
Thank you, BPS. And with that, I will close the testimony in opposition and open testimony in neutral. Is there anyone in the room? Anyone on the Zoom? No, we do not have any, so we will go BPS. Is there anyone on the phone line for neutral?
Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers to testify in the neutral position on SB 215 at this time.
Thank you very much, BPS. Senator Dennis or Superintendent, did you want to?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this important opportunity to move our kids forward and to move to the next level. As for the issue that was just brought up, I had not had an opportunity to talk with legal counsel about that issue, and I don't know that makes a difference to me either way. I think what the intent was to give an opportunity, not to enroll them in a class, but enroll them in education, but to give them like they currently have the opportunity to take a class. If that is not doing that, then we can look at that. And then I also did hear the issue about making sure that the teacher's involved with so we'll take a look at those items as we move forward, and appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today.
Thank you, Senator. I appreciate all your work on this bill. With that, I will close the hearing on SB 215, and we will go to our final agenda item, which is public comment. Do we have anyone in the room to make public comment? And no one on the Zoom. So we will go to BPS. Do we have anyone on the phone line to make public comment?
To provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the line is open and working. However, we have no callers to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you, BPS. So we will close public comment and just talk about our next meeting, which is, what day is it? It's Thursday today. So, which day? Tuesday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. We will be meeting on Tuesday, on Star Wars Day at 1:30 here. We will have 3 bills, and we'll get that agenda up soon so you can do some homework over the weekend if you want. And any comments from members? Oh, I forgot. We have a birthday in the committee. I would be remiss if we didn't all turn on our microphones and sing happy birthday. Shall we go? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Assemblyman MacArthur, TikTok star. Happy birthday to you, and many more.
21st birthday all over again.
Yes, he has not stopped talking about his birthday. So it was like, if we didn't do this, like it was going to be an issue. So happy Thursday. Enjoy your day tonight. Enjoy your day tonight. Enjoy your night tonight. And I will see you guys next week. This meeting is adjourned.